The battle for New Hampshire begins after Donald Trump dominates in Iowa. 31 minutes is all the time it took for the former president to be declared the winner of the Iowa caucuses. Trump breaking several records and carrying 98 out of the state's 99 counties in a landslide victory. The former president says it's time for the party to unite and take on President Biden.
I don't want to be overly rough on the president, but I have to say that he is the worst president that we've had in the history of our country. And I really think this is time now for everybody, our country, to come together. I want to congratulate Ron and Nikki for having a good time together. We're all having a good time together.
But the runners-up aren't finished yet. Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley brushing off their losses and trying to argue that the race isn't over.
Because of your support, in spite of all of that they threw at us, everyone against us, we've got our ticket punched out of Iowa.
I can safely say tonight, Iowa made this Republican primary a two-person race.
But not everybody's going to New Hampshire. Vivek Ramaswamy dropping out and endorsing Trump.
We are going to suspend this presidential campaign. And this is going to have to be, there is no path for me to be the next president. As I've said since the beginning, there are two America First candidates in this race. And earlier tonight, I called Donald Trump to tell him that I congratulated him on his victory. And now going forward, he will have my full endorsement for the presidency.
All right, Judge Jeanine Pirro, you watched all last night, even stayed up till midnight to see Harold Ford Jr.
Yes, I did. You know, I don't see enough of him here. Okay. First of all, I thought it was huge. Everybody knows it was historic. 98 out of 99 counties, and the 99th county lost by one vote. But look, it was a landslide. And so the question is, what happens now? I mean, is this it now? I really think it's amazing that Nikki Haley comes out. She's third, and she says it's now a two-party race, and I'm only going to debate Donald Trump or Biden. News for Nikki, Biden ain't debating anybody. That's number one. And number two, with Ron DeSantis talking about how great it was, the truth is he doesn't have a path forward because he's not skipping New Hampshire, but he's going right to South Carolina. He's not spending a lot of time in New Hampshire, and it makes sense because the truth is in New Hampshire, he's at about 6%. So here's the question. At the next stage in New Hampshire, if Nikki Haley is at 29 and she gets Chris Christie's votes, that brings her to 40%. Trump's at 43. He gets Ramaswamy's vote. That brings him to 50%. And DeSantis is at 6.5. So Trump wins. But you know what? For people who think it's too early to call, the truth is that Donald Trump got more votes than the three of them combined, Nikki and Ramaswamy and Ron DeSantis. And the truth is people in Iowa support his agenda. They felt that he's the kind of guy who works for them and fights for people like them. And the amazing thing, too, is that he got a bigger percentage of college graduates than they did. He got a bigger percentage of suburban, urban. He got it across the board. And the people in Iowa, that is not exactly a border state, are like immigration is the biggest issue. So this is a resounding win for Trump, not just for what happened in Iowa, but as you look forward, you say to yourself, those other guys don't have a chance.
Let's look forward. I mean, how long will it take for people to just kind of realize what's going on? Harold Ford Jr.
Good to be back around this table, around the table in Iowa last night. I'd say a couple of things. I think the judge is right. You can't underestimate this victory last night for former President Trump. Two things. One, he had an organization on the ground, unlike he had 7-8 years ago when he didn't win in Iowa. This year, he had an organization. They campaigned. He didn't spend as much time as the other two candidates, but he had some benefits and advantages they did not have. Two, his speech after winning, I thought, was remarkable for him. It demonstrated, I think, Judge, your instinct, which others in the party, the Republican Party, who, far be it from me to try to give advice to Republicans, but as someone who loves the serious business of politics and watching politicians try to perform and perform at their best. I thought him talking in a cordial, collegial, and conciliatory way to his opponents, particularly after he had won a majority of the vote, I thought was a clear sign that he understands what it means to be a presidential candidate and what it's going to mean to bring the party together and perhaps even bring independents his way. 3, DeSantis and Haley. I was surprised. DeSantis had no magnanimous nature to his speech. He basically acted as if he had won last night and gave us a history lesson from the Revolutionary War to the Civil War, which I found interesting because I like those kinds of things. But I don't know what necessarily had to do with last night. I thought he should have been more magnanimous and he never congratulated President Trump, nor he congratulated Ms. Haley, nor did he thank a volunteer. Trump went on to thank every volunteer. In fact, he brought a guy on stage who was dressed as a wall in the front row to say thank you to him. And I think there was another state senator who had supported him very early in the campaign. I think the only thing that if you were in the Haley campaign or DeSantis campaign, you may say, and you may not like me saying this, but I think if you were in that campaign, you say, look, do two of you need to stay around at least another week or two for 2 reasons. One, if you're Haley, are you a candidate to be VP? And if you win New Hampshire, do you make a stronger case for yourself? And then 2, if something by some strange chance happens to President Trump and he can't be the nominee for whatever reason, do you hang around a little bit? But I think if you just suspend your campaign, I think you leave open the opportunity to be able to unsuspend it, to be able to get back in the race. But without question, this was a tremendous night for former President Trump.
Well, Vivek, Sandra, suspended, and he's going to be joining Donald Trump at a rally this evening in New Hampshire. Also will be on Jesse Waters' primetime. What kind of impact do you think Vivek and his endorsement will have?
I think that's obviously he's throwing his support to Donald Trump. And he already had a very strong night. He's expected to have another strong showing in New Hampshire. I think you have to look at those voters in Iowa that said that they are looking for substantial change. 89% want at least substantial change in how this country is run. I mean, Vivek ran on that, obviously. He was reaching out to those voters, didn't quite reach enough of them. But they don't like the way the country is going, the direction it is in. They don't like their finances. But don't underestimate, and I think this is a big takeaway from last night, the impact that the immigration border chaos is having on the mind of the American voter right now. They don't like what they see happening in their cities, in their towns. They don't like the lawlessness that they're seeing at the border. For that to rate above the economy and the most pressing issues facing the country today, that is pretty remarkable. I mean, you can start to lump those two together, right? The immigration chaos and the economy. People see the economic impact that's having on their neighborhoods, their towns, their businesses, all of it sort of coming together. I mean, there were so many remarkable data points in favor of Donald Trump. I mean, when you even look at foreign policy, which was number 3 on the list of concerns facing the country for the voter on the ground in Iowa's foreign policy, Nikki Haley should have ran away with that. Donald Trump swept that as well. I mean, Nikki Haley came in a close second, but he was winning every single one of these categories. So he had an incredibly strong showing, and even in the urban and suburban communities, we know he's strong in the rural areas, but he won the largest share of voters who said they lived in the urban and suburban communities. So he reached just about everybody, all those Iowa voters who are looking for change and change in leadership. And, you know, you got to give him credit. DeSantis, he was on the ground. He tried to reach those voters. Harold, I think to your point when we were all listening to that speech, he was so happy to be number 2.
Yeah.
Well, you know what that means? It means he was first to lose. So I mean, but still, you'd be magnanimous. You thank people, right? That's my only point. I thought he should have just thanked people.
I agree with that. I do.
All right, GG.
Well, do you ever think about, when somebody might ask you to go see the Titanic, but you know how it's going to end? But you go, you sit down, you pretend you don't know how it's going to end, and you act like you're really surprised. I feel like that's what this is. We knew how this was going to end. We knew that it was going to be a blowout, but we still had to pretend that there was this anxious anticipation. And then we have the caucus, and what happens? We call it in 30 minutes. That's like going to see the Titanic. Okay, I'll sit down. I'm committed to this. And then the movie breaks in 30 minutes because you already know the ending.
Yeah.
You already know the ending, so why watch the rest of it? Right. Well, if that's the case, let's call the whole thing early. If you're right, and I believe you are, there's no path forward for these other candidates. So why don't the Republicans do what the Dems are doing and play for the general election, right? just because Trump blew everybody out in Iowa doesn't mean that's going to happen in November. You have to start thinking about that. The Dems are pulling out every weapon to stop Orange Hitler. And I want to make sure that the other side is also doing the same regarding Joe's atrocious record. And I kind of sometimes wonder that all of this money that is being spent, $300 million, for what? For a frozen night in Iowa that we knew was going to end this way. And we're all so surprised, but we spent $300 million on candidate karaoke, when in fact, you should actually be focusing on the big picture. Like, how are you going to do this after 4 years of Hitleritis, where, they basically demeaned half the population? This is why Vivek is important, because he could be a tremendous asset for Trump, because Trump may not have the patience to articulate why people with TDS should listen, right? Vivek is he has Ben Shapiro's brain, Victor Davis Hanson's wisdom, and my looks. And you saw how Vivek handles reporters and protesters. Him with Trump could be like Starsky and Hutch, or Crockett or Tubbs, or Laverne and Shirley, Sid and Nancy. I'm running out. But if you turn Vivek loose on TDS, he would be the best spokesman for the message to people that are still uncomfortable with Trump. The beliefs are the same: make America great, that meritocracy is necessary, America first, focus on citizens and not foreign wars, the border, law and order. I think that's the message.
What about Sanford and Son? I think
How could you forget? I was thinking Vivek press secretary.
Now, I think right now he needs somebody out there to because you're gonna have to melt a lot of this TDS.
Okay. Well, I think Vivek can do it, and then we'll make him press secretary.
Yeah.
It's already happening. He doesn't even know it yet.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.